The first time I saw the old elevator in my new apartment building, I thought little of it. It was just another quirk of the worn-down building in this forgettable part of the city. My apartment, though small and slightly musty, was affordable for a college student like me. The neighbors kept to themselves, each a character from a story you wouldn't read at bedtime. It was during my first week, as I returned home from a late class, that I noticed something odd about the elevator. The brass panel with its row of circular buttons had an extra one at the very top, unmarked and slightly larger than the others. It sat above the button for the 10th floor, the highest known floor in the building. Curiosity piqued, I asked Mr. Hubble, the building's caretaker, about it. He just chuckled, wiping his hands on a greasy rag. Some things are better left unpressed, Miss Amy, he said, with a glint in his eye that I couldn't quite place. His cryptic response only fueled my intrigue. That night, as I lay in bed, the unmarked button occupied my thoughts. It seemed like an invitation to a secret, a hidden chapter in the mundane story of this building. I decided then that I'd press it, just to see what would happen. Little did I know, that decision would lead me down a path far stranger than anything I could have imagined. A few days later, my curiosity had reached its peak. It was a typical evening, with the sun setting early, and the chill of autumn creeping through the narrow streets. I returned from my part-time job, exhausted and ready to collapse into bed. As I stepped into the elevator, my bag heavy on my shoulder, I glanced at the mysterious button. Without much thought, my finger reached out and pressed it. The elevator began its usual ascent, but as it passed the 10th floor, it shuddered and groaned like an old man waking from a deep sleep. The lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. I held my breath, my heart pounding in my chest. Then, with a jolt that nearly knocked me off my feet, the elevator came to a halt. The doors creaked open slowly, revealing a dimly lit corridor that shouldn't exist. I stepped out, my curiosity now mixed with a sense of unease. The floor was silent except for the distant hum of the city below. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of dust and decay. The corridor was lined with doors, each one closed and marked with peeling numbers. The carpet beneath my feet was threadbare and stained. I hesitated, wondering if I should explore this hidden floor or return to the safety of my apartment. But the allure of the unknown was too strong. I walked down the corridor, my footsteps muffled by the old carpet. Each step took me further into the heart of this phantom floor, a place that felt both detached from the world I knew and eerily familiar. As I ventured deeper into the corridor, a sense of isolation enveloped me. The dim lighting barely penetrated the darkness that seemed to cling to the walls. Each door I passed was like a sealed secret, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Driven by a mix of fear and fascination, I pushed open one of the doors. It creaked loudly, breaking the haunting silence. Inside, the room was covered in a thick layer of dust. The furniture was old and moth-eaten, yet arranged as if someone had just stepped out. A chill ran down my spine as I noticed personal items: a broken watch, a faded photograph of a smiling couple, a child's toy scattered around, as though the occupants had left in a hurry. The next room was similar, but with an added air of sadness. The diary lay open on a desk, the ink faded, but the words still legible, speaking of mundane life that once filled these walls. It felt like walking through a time capsule, a snapshot of lives long gone. My exploration was interrupted by a whisper, so faint I thought I had imagined it. I froze, listening intently. There it was again, a hushed, indistinct voice, as if carried by the stale air itself. My heart raced, and I felt an overwhelming urge to flee, but my feet wouldn't move. The whispers grew in number, surrounding me, though I could see no one. Shadows flickered at the corner of my eye, darting away when I turned to look. The atmosphere thickened with each step I took, oppressive and suffocating. In a panic, I decided to return to the elevator, but when I reached the spot where it should have been, there was only a blank wall. The elevator was gone, and with it, my only known way back. My breaths came in short gasps as the reality of my situation sank in. I was trapped on a floor that didn't exist, in a building that had forgotten it. Desperation set in as I frantically searched for any way out. The corridor seemed to stretch endlessly, with doors lining both sides like silent sentinels. My mind raced with thoughts of being lost forever in this forgotten place. Then, I stumbled upon a room unlike the others. It was larger, and the walls were lined with mirrors. Stepping inside, I was met with my own reflected image, multiplied 100 times in the dim light. The air felt charged, as if the room itself was alive. I approached one of the mirrors, and that's when I saw it, my reflection, but not quite. It was me, yet distorted, with hollow eyes and a twisted smile. I recoiled in horror, but couldn't look away. The reflection moved independently, its fingers tracing words on the glass. "Help me." My heart pounded in my chest as I read the message. "Who are you?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The reflection began to write again. "Trapped. Like you. Release me." The words sent a shiver down my spine. "Release you? How?" I asked, my voice trembling. It wrote in response. "Swap places." I stumbled backward, the implication of its words hitting me like a physical blow. This wasn't just a reflection, it was something else, something that had been trapped here, in this liminal space. As I backed away, the reflection's expression twisted into one of rage. It started pounding on the glass, its movements frantic and desperate. The other mirrors began to reflect the same scene, turning the room into a kaleidoscope of terror. I turned to run, but found myself facing the elevator, its doors open invitingly. It was my chance to escape, but as I stepped inside, the reflection let out a piercing scream, its hand reaching out from the mirror, trying to grasp me. With a surge of adrenaline, I slammed the elevator button, the doors closing, just as the reflection's fingers brushed the air where I had been standing. The elevator began its descent, the screams from the mirrors growing fainter as I left the phantom floor behind. As the elevator descended, the normalcy of its humming and the steady movement were in stark contrast to the chaos I had just escaped. My hands were shaking, and my breaths came in ragged gasps. I leaned against the wall, trying to process what had just happened. The memory of the distorted reflection's desperate eyes haunted me. When the elevator finally dinged, announcing my arrival at my floor, I stumbled out, grateful for the familiar hallway leading to my apartment. I rushed inside, locking the door behind me. I leaned back against it, sliding down to the floor, overwhelmed by a sense of relief and disbelief. The rest of the night was restless. Every creak of the building, every whisper of wind seemed ominous. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched, the fear that something had followed me from that otherworldly floor. In the following days, I avoided the elevator, opting for the stairs instead. I couldn't bear the thought of being enclosed in that space, with the possibility of being taken back to the phantom floor. I kept to myself, wary of the building and its secrets. I heard murmurs among the other residents about strange noises and the elevator stopping at an unmarked floor, but no one else spoke of venturing into it. It seemed I was the only one who had dared, or perhaps the only one who had returned. The experience left a mark on me. I was more cautious, more aware of the thin veil between the ordinary and the unknown. The building held a mystery that I no longer wished to unravel. The memory of the phantom floor lingered in my mind, a dark reminder of the curiosity that had led me to the brink of a reality I was not prepared to face. Life gradually returned to a semblance of normalcy, but the shadow of that night hung over me like a shroud. I focused on my studies and avoided late nights as much as possible. The once intriguing mysteries of the old building now only served as a source of unease. I noticed small changes in the building. Sometimes, late at night, I would hear the distant sound of the elevator moving, even though I knew no one else was awake. Other times, the air would grow inexplicably cold, sending chills down my spine. One evening, as I passed by the elevator on my way to the stairs, it dinged unexpectedly. The doors slid open, revealing the empty cabin. My heart skipped a beat when I saw the unmarked button, glowing softly as if beckoning me. I stood frozen, staring at it. The memory of the distorted reflection and its chilling plea echoed in my mind. A part of me wondered if it was still there, trapped and waiting. But fear rooted me to the spot, a stark reminder of the terror I had felt. I quickly turned away, taking the stairs two at a time, trying to escape the pull of the elevator and its hidden floor. In my apartment, I double-checked the locks, a futile gesture, but one that offered a sliver of comfort. That night, as I lay in bed, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. It was as if the building itself had become aware of my knowledge of its secret. I knew then that the story of the phantom floor wasn't over. It was a chapter in my life that would remain perpetually open, a narrative with an ending yet to be written. The elevator and its unmarked button were more than just a physical presence in the building. They were a reminder that some mysteries are better left unexplored, that some doors are better left closed. And yet, despite my fear, a part of me knew that the allure of the unknown would always be there, tempting me back to the phantom floor. As I finally drifted into a restless sleep, the last thought that crossed my mind was a chilling realization. The mystery of the phantom floor wasn't just a part of the building. It had become a part of me, a haunting echo that would linger in the depths of my mind, always waiting, always watching.